Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Floof Talk, where two of Furry Valley certify. I should not have started with alliteration. Our
That's a great
certifiably
start, isn't it?
floofiest folk discuss whatever it is you'd like, be it the newest scientific discovery, political nonsense, or all stuff fluff. I'm your host, Nova the Bass Skunk, and I'm here with my co-host, Oreo addict and leader of Furry Valley, Simba. Simba, it's great having you on again. What's up?
Nice to spend time with you as always. I got a contest though. Oreo obsessed. The Oreo command originally was meant to be usable by everyone, but then it was a guy called Ryukin who had the command initially. But then Ryukin got banned, and we wanted to have the command, and so that's why I became the Oreo person. But they're not my favorite cookies at all. I don't even like them that much.
I feel so lied to, I'm not gonna lie.
Well, I suppose the entire time you've been an FE, it's been my thingy, and I'm Simba Oreo on Telegram. But no, that's not my standard. I think being British, it's got to be the chocolate digestive.
Alright, well, while all of us try to get over that deception, I think that this is a lot less formal than our podcast, so why don't we go ahead and just jump right in?
Yeah, I can do. So for
So,
those of you who's not been here before, we discuss a range of topics, all sorts of things, not just furry things, anything that's happening in the world. If you have any suggestions, please put them in our Twitch chat or in the Floof Talk channel on Discord. We'll get to them.
and thankfully, we've got a lot of suggestions from our audience from this and last week. Sorry, I'm still trying to get over that whole Oreo thing. I am thrown for a loop.
Totally taking you off guard.
Yeah, not how I expected to start our show. So, our first question came from Trippy, and Trippy wants to know how we should deal with the issue with animal overpopulation, primarily cats and dogs. And I'm not sure if that's an issue in the UK. Is that an issue there whatsoever?
No. I mean, specifically pet animals. No. Our RSPCA encourages to get animals spayed so they can't have more kittens and puppies. But no, it's not a problem. Is it a problem in the US?
It's not one that people are super aware of, but it's still a pervasive issue. There was a study done not too long ago that showed both, not just feral cats, but house cats have a big part in it, that cats in the West kill 3 billion birds every year. And they don't do it for sustenance, they do it because it's fun. They'll leave bird carcasses when they're done.
I mean, as a feline, I've got to say, I can empathize. Kill things for fun.
Yeah, no, not going to validate that one. So the question is, because it's a combination of factors, people think that the right thing to do is to they see feral cats with kittens, they want to feed it because we're nurturing people at heart, and all that does is add to the issue where that means more dead animals, more disease, and more kittens that can't be taken care of.
Well, so in my third year undergrad at university, I did a course called Dynamical Systems. And one of the things we learned about was the Volterra-Lotka equations. And they basically model predator-prey population dynamics. It's exactly this problem, nonlinear differential equations. And the simple solution is that it just deals with itself. If you have too many cats, then eventually, okay, humans will feed them to a point, but they're not going to feed them when there's millions of them roaming around. So past a certain point, the cats will not have enough food, and then the birds will recover. And then when there are sufficiently many birds and sufficiently few cats, well, the cats will start killing more birds again, and it just goes up and down in a cycle. And you can model this. All sorts of dynamics like this are modeled by exactly the same equations with different coefficients, and they reliably work like that over a long period of time. I think perhaps more of a danger to wild birds and other animals is habitat loss. So terraforming, I mean, look at the Amazon for a very good example of this sort of thing. But across the whole world, tigers lose habitat, lions lose habitat. It's not just birds. All animals suffer from this, and this obviously, this sort of new human dynamic is not really something which the populations have evolved with, and so it can throw the equations off balance. But feeding a few stray cats is not going to do that.
And that was something I was going to ask. It didn't really sound like those formulas really accounted for the human hand in play. And yes, one person feeding a couple cats isn't going to make a big difference, but when the culture says that's okay, then it becomes more than just one person feeding some cats. It's a lot of people feeding entire families.
Well, it kind of is, but then you think to yourself, okay, well, if they're killing trillions of birds, for that to really be a problem, there's going to have to be hundreds of millions of cats. 3 trillion, you think 3 trillion birds and bird population is still reasonably good, means there must be hundreds of trillions of birds or tens of trillions of birds in total. So the sheer scale of it means in order for this to actually become a problem, you're going to need billions of cats, many billions of cats, and that's not sustainable. If you think there are 300 million people in the US, if each of them fed 100 cats, which is never going to happen, that's still 30 billion cats. And even that, it's not, I don't see it. I don't see it. The average person might, on average, sustain one cat. I could believe that. And that's not going to fuck up those equations too badly. But if the birds lose all their habitat, that certainly would, because then where are they going to breed if they've got no trees to have nests?
Well, according to the equation, everything will die out eventually and then come back, even if that means us going a long way.
No, according to the equations, it'll get to a certain point, a low point, and then it will start to increase again. It's certainly not the case that everything dies out. If something dies out, well, they can't come back again. So if you take away all of the new chicks by taking away where they're going to have children, where they're going to breed, then it can't go back up. So you have to have that is a much more severe thing. More predators simply means that the prey will be eaten more quickly, but then the predators will have no food and they'll die more quickly. But if the prey have no means to reproduce properly because they haven't got anywhere to reproduce, then all the prey and all the predators will die. The prey first, of course, but then the predators not long after. So I don't think this is I think we're looking at the wrong thing. Feeding stray cats is not going to cause any problems. Feeding stray dogs isn't going to cause any problems. At least in the sort of population dynamic side of things. But
Yeah, I'd say I agree. And I hate that argument as a whole. We shouldn't worry about this because this is more pressing, but I think one really is more just a very small piece of the big picture here.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, you will change the graphs somewhat if you adjust the parameters. Of course, you'll change the graphs a little bit, but the point is you won't ever change the graph so much by feeding a few stray animals that you're going to make one species go extinct by doing this, and that's the key. Whereas if you take away all their habitat, you absolutely will, and we've seen that happen over and over and over again. Now, it's certainly the case that if you introduce an invasive species, for example, the grey squirrel being introduced into the UK, or all sorts of species over the years being introduced to Australia, that can have a really bad impact on native wildlife. But that's because they didn't evolve like that, and that's a significant. Like, we have an extra predator now, that prey can't sustain itself because there just isn't enough of it. So that sort of thing is much more of a problem.
So I guess to answer Trippy's question, he's not here unfortunately, but he asks how to deal with animal overpopulation, and the answer is don't.
Yeah. Allow it to deal with itself, because there'll come a point where it's not sustainable, and then nature will do its thing.
And yeah, I get it. There are fluffy friends. It's cats and dogs. It's not some sort of varmint, but when they're feral, they're not the same animals that we come to love. They're they're animalistic. They've got no dependence on us. They've got no that loyalty that we've kind of placed on them.
Yeah. I mean, one could argue whether or not a cat is ever loyal, but yeah, for sure with dogs, I suppose.
As a quick aside, did you see that study that whereas there's something that allows dogs to form a connection with us, it's blasoplasmosis, I want to say it's called, in cats, that they carry the bacteria that infects us that then makes
The
us more trusted.
toxoplasmosis thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
I found
It's
that fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's half of the Western world carries toxoplasmosis because we get it from our cats. And this is the same bacteria that they give to mice in order to make the mice less afraid of cats, and therefore they are easy to catch. Very interesting. But it also can make people go blind, so you don't want to. That's why you don't want to handle cat feces with your hands. Always wear gloves
Yeah.
if you need to, because that, yeah.
Alrighty. Do we want to go ahead and move to the next topic?
Yeah, it can do. So our next topic is how to deal with conflict, in particular the sort of call-out culture that we see in 2019 with social media and stuff. And I think that's a good place to start. It used to be the case that when we had a situation that was causing conflict, we had the sort of social structure in which to deal with it in a way that wasn't just a case of blasting someone we didn't like on Twitter. That's quite a change from how things used to be, how it's dealt with nowadays. How do you feel about that?
Well, let's not pretend that we haven't always loved call out culture and putting people on blast. Back in the day, look at the Puritan civilizations in America, where if there was a case of adultery or theft, they would. I'm trying to remember what it was. The lashing pole was also like the posting place in town square where you would post the crimes that people have committed, so everyone could come and rally together and get angry about it. This social media and such has definitely expedited that, but it's not like
In
it's
that
out
sense.
of our nature to do so.
Why do you think people do it? Do you think they sort of it makes them feel like they're more innocent if they're sort of, well, look, that person did it, and let's just all pretend that they're the only person who's done this sort of thing? Do you think it makes people feel more comfortable about their own misgivings?
Um, I'm really not a proponent of human nature versus cultural nature, but I think the culture that the West has produced for whatever reason, I don't know what to point to, but I feel like a lot of us have a need for justice, to have it presented to us in a palpable way.
I think ultimately, if we have conflict with another person or another set of people, what we want is for that conflict to be resolved. I mean, that's what's causing us the stress or trouble. And I don't feel that call out culture does solve the conflict. It probably makes people more resolute because they feel, well, I'm not going to be nice to you because you're going to slate me on Twitter or whatever, or Telegram or whatever media people choose. And so I think probably it reinforces the views and the behavior people have rather than necessarily making them want to change. And it can have, well, what I presume, I mean, it's got to be unintentional side effects that actually probably make it worse for the person who had the issue to begin with. Uh, from my personal experience, we had uh, honestly, like I'm super new to social media. A year ago, I'd never used Twitter. I wish I never had still. But we had someone in Furry Valley who it used to be the case that we had an NSFW art section, 18 plus gated, just for the record. And someone posted a picture in there from E621, and then like four people replied saying, "Oh, that's a hot she-male, mirror, mirror, mirror," for and the picture was posted like 2 weeks beforehand, and this woman came to me and she was like, "I take offense to this picture," and I'm like, "Well, what do you mean you take offense to it?" And she's like, "They said she-male." And I, look, I didn't understand that the far left and social justice warriors were a thing. I thought that these were constructs made up by people who support Trump to justify why they support Trump, and I didn't realize it was real. So I helpfully, I thought, lectured this person on Justin Peterson. I linked to his lectures, and I was like, "No, that doesn't make sense. This is out of context. You can't do this. You can't say this." And this person went and ranted about us on Twitter. And I kid you not, it was absolutely eye-opening. I couldn't believe these people were real, and I couldn't believe they believed the things they did. And what happened was, obviously in FV we are very, very strongly LGBT plus supportive, but I felt that the trans community, as a result of this, I felt more, not afraid of them, but more sort of cautious around them. And ultimately, what the person who came to me would have wanted, I would have presumed, would be equal treatment to anyone else. And by behaving like that, they turned me and FE in general, because obviously I'm a representative of FE, to be more cautious around these people rather than the same as we would be around anyone else. And I think that's a shame. And I think that's a good example of how it can have unintentional effects where you can actually ostracize the people who support you if you're careless with this sort of thing. But yeah, that's sort of the deep water introduction I got to social media. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, unfortunately, both with the way that social media operates fundamentally, you can look at Reddit where no matter how they want to frame their website, upvotes and downvotes are always going to be agree, disagree buttons. Or you can look at it for Facebook or Twitter where they have actively engineered echo chambers so that you only see people that you agree with because they know that's going to get you to spend more time on their site. You're having your experiences with people of other viewpoints totally limited, which is unfortunately totally outside of the spirit of the internet where we're all supposed to be connected and on equal footing. But yes, social media definitely has its problems, and call-out culture is problematic. You're absolutely right. You should not be lambasted when the people coming to you are people who represent the most radical 1% of what is 99% a open-minded community. I'll tell you, the trans folk that I interact with in
that can be quite intimidating, and the community as a whole suffers because of it. If you've got a spokesperson who doesn't represent you but presents as they do represent you, well, that's going to cause problems. Yeah, and it certainly, I don't particularly want to be more cautious around these people, but I have to be because I've seen what happens if I'm not. And that's not good. That essentially means that I'm not no, I'm not being honest as I feel and as I think and as I want to present, because I'm afraid of, well, what if they say this and that, and that's not how it should be. But I think what you said about these social media giants encouraging echo chambers and stuff is such a shame, because I think people, well, first they've become more conditioned that the way to deal with conflict is you have this call out sort of nonsense, and secondly, people have become, well, they're sort of lacking experience in how to deal with this kind of issue. They're not, that they see debating and calm discussion as something relegated to the realms of stuffy-nosed academics. And that's a shame. I think that there's a lot that we can learn from various people of different viewpoints if we actually talk, rather than just, you don't like trans people, shout you on Twitter and then have an echo of it. It's not productive. And you're not solving the conflict, because the people you do that against are going to double down and your supporters will do the same. And then you have a larger gap, not a smaller gap. So the conflict has got bigger. And that surely isn't what you want. But of course, it's good for the business. That's why they do it. But it'd be nice if people realize this a little more.
You know, I actually don't think you frame that well, especially for furries. I don't think that people on social media necessarily feel that proper debate is relegated, because by God,
Well, they don't do it.
Well, the problem is that, and I've voiced it several times on the server, because people want a debate channel, they want a politics channel, but our sort of with the way politics operates today, people have started internalizing their own political beliefs as a form of their identity, where if you can see it in America, particularly with the pro-life folk, where if you disagree with them, that is suddenly just totally morally egregious and antithetical to their viewpoint, and you saying otherwise is attacking that part of their identity. So I've
Yeah.
had plenty of political discussions with furries specifically because I'm very good at not getting heated. I love to just have the discussion. And a lot of them are very thankful for it, but they themselves, even if I'm just pointing up or pointing out small inconsistencies or bringing up my own points that invalidate theirs, they immediately get defensive and upset. So they want to have these discussions. It's just they feel like in doing so, they're putting their own identity on the line.
I really do think it's that they're not experienced in having the discussions. I mean, yes, it may be part of their identity, but if you're not used to and you've not had an environment in which you can successfully have those kind of discussions without biting someone's face off, you're probably not going to be able to successfully do it. And I feel that the call out culture that we have currently doesn't provide people with that kind of experience. And I feel without that experience, well, it's difficult for them to even if they sort of want to engage with that, it's difficult for them to know how to. And if you don't know how to do something, you're going to make a fool of yourself when you try, and that makes people not want to do it even more and such.
So it sounds like, unfortunately, like every other issue like this we bring up, that the answer to this is just better education.
Exactly. More regulation on social media. It shouldn't be the case that a business model makes its customers want to feel shit and make society feel bad. That's not acceptable. And the government needs to regulate companies that do this. Shall we move on?
Let's go ahead. This is the part where Nova gets to take a little break because you're about to give us your mini lecture on quantum mechanics.
I don't know about that. I figured you would have researched and know a little bit about this sort of stuff.
I might be able to provide some oohs and ahs, but whereas everything else I know I could grasp pretty quickly, just knew was not going to be in my realm of understanding.
All right, so we had a lot of people last week who were quite interested in the sciencey sort of stuff, and quantum mechanics is something that I specialized in my undergrad. I found it really fascinating, really cool, quirky results you wouldn't expect. So I'd like to give you guys a little bit of insight into that now. So in the world that we live in, we generally interact with objects that are quite large, macro scale objects like a person or a computer or a car. Those sorts of things are governed generally by what we call Newtonian dynamics, after Newton, gravity, all that sort of stuff. When you go down to the really small level, particle physics, you look at things like photons, electrons, and so forth. Those are governed by the rules of quantum mechanics. And no doubt you'll have heard of people looking at this sort of unified theory of everything. Now, part of that is uniting the Newtonian dynamics and the quantum mechanics. So, looking at what happens when you have really big things and really small, relatively really big things, and relatively really small things. And you combine them, you get something called quantum gravity. That's a really active field of research. We don't understand it. It's present in black holes. I'm sure you guys will have seen the images recently. All these black holes. Cool, right? And one of the main problems is when we try to combine the equations of quantum mechanics with those of Newtonian dynamics, we end up with problems like divisions by zero in the middle of our calculus integrals and so forth. And it's a problem. So we need some really clever person to come along and resolve the relatively large with the relatively small, so that we can have these integrated systems that work properly. And although I said quantum mechanics generally affects really small objects as opposed to relatively large objects, it is the case that quantum principles play a part in large objects too. For example, your car. You could say, okay, my car's in this place and it's going this fast. And if you try to measure where it is, okay, you can measure roughly where it is. You get a better instrument. You can measure more precisely where it is and how fast it's going. And you might think from that, well, if I have good enough equipment, I can measure exactly where my car is to the nearest, however many fractions of a meter, and exactly how fast it's going. But it turns out that quantum mechanics, even though your car is quite large, plays a big effect, and it's not possible to determine exactly where your car is and exactly how fast it's going at the same time. Something called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle says you can't measure the position and momentum, which is based on speed of an object at the same time. There's all sorts of quirky results like this. Sure, you guys have heard of the Schrodinger's cat thing, where the cat is dead or alive, and whether or not you look is deterministic of whether it should be dead or alive. But it turns out that everything in the world, macro scale or not, and by macro scale I mean the relatively large stuff or not, is actually probabilistic. So it's not actually guaranteed that you're sat in front of your computer right now. You probably are. I mean, it's very, very, very likely you are, but you might not be. And the reason why is because your particles, the matter that makes up you, is only probabilistic in its spatial capacity. And as such, who knows? Maybe some of your atoms are on Mars right now. Very unlikely, but it might be. So yeah, that's very brief sort of whistle-stop tour of cool, quirky QM stuff. Some really interesting results with this.
Goodness gracious, I wish I already had enough of a background to be able to ask you something on it. I mean, you named basically everything I've ever heard of quantum mechanics. Mostly from Futurama jokes, mind you. I'm not gonna lie to you.
I love Futurama. It's one of those shows. I think The Simpsons is quite similar, where you watch it as a sort of 14-year-old, and you're like, "Oh yeah, lol, that's funny." And then when you know a bit more, you're like, "Oh wow, there's really subtle things they put in as well." And that's it's quite nice. Big Bang Theory is another one like this, where it's just objectively funny, but if you know a bit more science, you're like, "Oh right, lol, I get what they're trying to get at there."
You know, the folk from Futurama have a formula named after them. The
Really?
Farnsworth paradox. You remember
Oh,
the episode where they switch bodies, but they can't switch the same bodies twice?
right.
Uh, well, they actually wrote out a true formula to determine that, and the answer's 7 or 5 or something.
Okay.
But they got that named
Interesting.
after him. I think that's cool.
Yeah, yeah. Cool. I think
So,
it's really really cool. One of the actors in Big Bang Theory is a biochemist, I think, PhD. So actual scientist.
yeah, they've got something like 4 or 5 math doctorates behind the Matt Groening team. They really are a
Cool.
smart bunch.
I think you have to be to have that sort of multi-layered comedy thing.
And then you got Family Guy.
I love it.
I mean, it's nonsense humor, but it's still good.
Oh, Peter.
Steve Hocktail in there with the big bazinga.
Shall we move on?
Yeah, we'll have to have episode 2 on Thursday.
For sure.
So our next topic, this one was suggested by Dana. He wanted to know what we thought about vaping, and we're supposed to be instituting a new vaping ban in November, I believe. After the deaths of 6 people from bootleg cartridges, they are getting ready to ban all non-tobacco flavored nicotine cartridges for vaping.
Do you feel that's a bit extreme? And do you think they're actually
Absolutely.
going to?
I think it's a big ploy by the tobacco lobby. There have
Oh, you
been
think they're funding it?
absolutely.
Hmm.
They do this every time. I mean, we've already done this before. We banned flavored cigarettes 25 years ago, I believe.
Right.
And they never went away. What actually happened was they got rebranded as flavored or filtered cigarellos, and
Yum.
they don't get taxed almost whatsoever. So they still exist, they still get sold, and they still get to market them toward young folk, but with absolutely none of the repercussions, at least from a business standpoint. Yeah, no, Steve's absolutely right here. 6 deaths from illegal vaping is absolutely nothing when
Well, do you think how many people die of actual
exactly.
cigarettes? And yeah, I mean, vaping isn't as big in the UK. I don't I don't vape, and I don't know anyone who does. But um, we've had something kind of similar, which is the sort of legal high thing. So up until about 10 years ago, I'd say, most of the people like Paco, who's just joined, were doing proper drugs in order to get their high. So you've got heroin, cocaine, all that sort of stuff. But now there's this legal high thing where you can almost buy them in the corner shop, and it's unregulated drugs that are, really should be class B at least. Um, but people get them and yeah, obviously end up with issues from them. But I think it's difficult to regulate this stuff, especially new technology comes out and new substances come out. Even if you were to ban all new drugs and vaping and all that shit, well, they're just going to come out with something new. And you mentioned rebranding. If that's a possibility, I mean, that of course, but also just synthesizing new substances. And people will always have their vices. Give them,
Well,
you say they can't have one thing, give them another.
that's exactly what's happening, especially we've mostly snuffed it out here, but I know it's still pretty big in the UK. I watched a documentary about this not too long ago. What you're referring to is research chemicals, which were specifically developed to mimic certain drugs or combinations of drugs.
Yeah.
And because they are pharmaceuticals in the way they exist, you can't just say, I'm going to ban everything that looks like this.
Yeah.
So when they finally, after months and months, managed to get legislation through that would ban that chemical, they just tweak one little thing and
Yeah,
suddenly
yeah.
it's legal again.
Make enough
But
some more of it, and then
they've done this dozens and dozens of times now. So what they're looking at, even though it was the same brand, the same people a couple years ago, is absolutely unrecognizable from the form it first took. That's why
yeah,
we heard this about people in Florida eating each other's faces on bath salts.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
bath
yeah,
salts
yeah,
at one point was significantly more mild and probably wouldn't make you eat someone, but it was still kind of
yeah,
crazy. But it's just something you can't really regulate. People are going to find that high, and if you take away everything, they're going to turn to gasoline and
yeah.
computer cleaner and stuff.
What do you think about the policy in Portugal where all drugs are legal? I think it's legal to consume anything, but you can't sell most things, can't deal most things.
Yeah, I agree entirely. And if you're found using in public, you get taken to a safe injection site where they share the space with rehab facilities.
Mm.
Portugal absolutely has it right.
Mm-hmm.
When you take away the criminal aspect and give people the opportunity in the facility to get better, then
Yeah,
even if it's not going to be more often than not, it's still significantly more likely that they're going to get off that drug.
yeah. I
Criminalizing
think so.
drugs does not lower drug use.
I think there's the same sort of parallel with prostitution. People are going to do it, so give them a safe place to do it. Don't make them go in dirtier and shittier street corners and get raped and murdered because it's not it's not solving the problem.
Exactly.
Mm.
So, bringing it back to vaping, obviously neither of us like it, but do we really think that tobacco has any place in modern society?
No, if I could ban it, I certainly would. It makes people very sick. Well, you don't have an NHS, but you might have one if you get a Democrat. But like our NHS is very strained from tobacco and nicotine related illnesses. It's unpleasant. It makes people smile. It's litter. It's not good. I think if it wasn't for companies pushing, hey, we make a lot of money off this, and the government saying, hey, well, we can tax you a good amount of money off this, I think probably people would generally shit on, get rid of. I don't know anyone who sort of likes the fact they smoke. I think there's people here who like the fact they vape. They think it's trendy. But there's no one who's like, oh, lol, I'm just going to go out and have a cigarette and then smell shit for the rest of the day. I don't think people are proud of that. I think it's a generational thing. The younger people our age, younger than us, yeah, they vape because it's cool. And they vape because, yeah, okay, hipster. But they don't smoke and think the same way.
Uh, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I genuinely enjoy tobacco. I
Really?
mean,
Do you
I
enjoy the
like.
effects of it though, or do you?
I mean, speaking as someone who is smoked longer than they should now. I like the. I'm not sure if I'm enjoying the nicotine or the fact that I'm fulfilling an addiction, which is one of the
Mm,
satisfying things that you can feel. But
hmm
I should probably stop smoking or rather just move to cigars and pipe tobacco because that's a lot less habitual. But I can't lie and say that I don't see any appeal in smoking. Not to mention, it's very social. When you smoke, anyone else who smokes is suddenly your friend for that 15 minutes. I've met some fascinating people just by standing out and having a cigarette. Please, people, do not smoke. Do not take this as any reason to smoke. I know Nova's cool and all, but smoking does not make you cool. But I will say that, for the millions upon millions of cons, there are 2 or 3 pros.
Yeah, I know. I think this again comes down to a regional thing. In the UK, it was banned to smoke in any public place, probably about 10 years ago now. And so the social aspect is you could do it socially in a private place, but you aren't going to be able to do it socially in a restaurant or outside a bar. You'd get arrested. So, yeah.
Munch wanted to mention that nicotine is a stimulant that helps control hyperactivity in people with ADHD. Uh, I think that there are probably better ways of handling that. Uh,
Like
there's also study,
Ritalin.
there's also studies that show that people who smoke or rather intake nicotine have like a 46% chance less of developing Parkinson's disease. But perhaps that's because you die significantly sooner.
Yeah,
Uh,
maybe.
yeah, no, I get that like I said, there are a couple pros to those millions of cons, and I really just don't think you can make a case to say it's worth it.
No. If you're gonna smoke, roll up your £5 note and smoke that, 'cause that's what you're doing. Setting money on fire, literally. And that's a good point. If you stop smoking, you now have enough money to buy Furry Valley Guardian. So you can go and do that on Patreon. And you don't subscribe. It's customary. You guys have teased me about getting a plugin. Now I got to do it every time. I got to find a space.
I find it really sneaky you pushed it into all that tobacco talk there. Okay, addictions, addictions, addictions. How about Furry Valley Guardian?
How is that an addiction? What, you want me to start selling cigarettes or something on a merchandise store? Right. No, enough of this.
Yes, Furry Valley branded cigarettes.
No. I mean,
Taste the
ethically, I
musk.
am. Taste the musk. Oh my lord. God, we need Ventus here for this. Shall we move on?
Yes, this is the perfect time to move on.
All
So we've
right.
talked a fair amount about science already. So let's talk about the other side. Let's talk about anti-science. In the last several years, we've seen a huge increase in people who are anti-vaccination, the flat Earth movement, or anything else that is just totally bizarre to the rest of us living in reality. So, I mean, what do you think's causing this? Why are people suddenly out here and vocal speaking against things that we determined were real hundreds or thousands of years ago?
So it's driven by politics, I feel. And we've got Trump in the US and people like Michael Gove, Boris Johnson in the UK, basically saying, well, you can't trust what the experts say because they don't know, right? It's all, you can't trust what politicians say, you can't trust what economists say, you can't trust what scientists say. And people, the people would rather believe a falsehood that is more attractive to them than the truth that is unattractive to them generally. And so if someone says, you can't do that, but you want to, well, you might want to just say, oh, you're wrong anyway. It doesn't matter whether they're right or not. You'd rather they were wrong, and so you're just going to claim they're wrong. And so I think it stems from politics, because this sort of fear of the experts and you've only done this for your whole life. How could you possibly know what the truth was? And just random people believing what they want rather than what they should because it's true. But the truth almost doesn't matter anymore. It's this is so widespread now. It's frightening. You look at the whole anti-FV sort of nonsense that we put up with, and it's really made me realize it absolutely doesn't matter what's true and what's not. It only matters what people are willing to believe. If people believe what you present to them, who gives a shit if it's true? That's the state of 2019. It's sort of a post-truth era. It's very frightening.
Well, the question, I guess, is why these in particular then? You said these people look for alternatives because it cements their worldview, it makes them feel better about themselves.
Yeah, it's that. Yeah, they don't like the truth. The truth isn't happy, and it's these people. Yeah, they deny global warming because I want to eat my cheeseburger every day. I want to have my 3 cars for my 2 children.
But what do they
You know.
get out of thinking that the world is flat?
Um. Oh, I think those people are just nuts. I'm not sure that those people really have.
Uh,
That's more conspiracy people. I would say that's quite different from people who are anti-science because it makes their world happier. I think the conspiracy theorists, these who like alien abduction, flat earthers, that's a sort of different category. So there are two separate things here, I think. The people who willfully deny problems such as global warming, they're a different category to the I'm just a conspiracy nut job.
and once again, the answer here is going to be better education, but more so than that, teaching people how to, and it's something that we've totally lost. We don't have any sort of historiographical literacy. People are almost incapable of being able to tell what is. You can present two relatively similar looking articles and one be totally fake, and they will have
Yeah.
no ability to distinguish which is right.
Well, that's because I think people learn from what they're shown. People will just, if they don't know something about it, or the first source you show them about it, they're going to believe. Now, this is why I think that Twitter can be very powerful, because if you don't know anything about someone and then you hear this person's bad, then people seem to just assume that person's bad. And I think this is sort of what's happened with anti-FV stuff. People say, I hate FV, and then people retweet it. And then I kid you not, we've had people tweet anti-FV shit, and it's had like 200 retweets. And then they post afterwards, what's FV? And it's like, you're so kind of taken in by what you read or what you're told if you know nothing about something. That I don't know. Is that just human nature? It's weird to be so believing of something you know nothing about. People just don't ask for for logical explanations and evidence of what they read, what they're told. I suppose it's easier not to. You sort of want to. It's herd mentality. You want to assume, well, if my friends believe that, well, I guess it must be true. They must have researched it, right? Collective ignorance.
I think a big part of it is that people want to be able to relinquish control. It's a big reason. There's a lot of it, and I can't believe people who I knew in college who were rather smart people were getting involved in conspiracy theories like the Illuminati, like the grand Satanist cabal that apparently exists in American Congress. And people are looking for ways to feel smart and know what the problem is, but the problem also has to be conveniently so ethereal and out of their reach that they can't be expected to do something about it.
Yeah, it's I think honestly I've read some of this sort of conspiracy stuff, and I just think it's just people are bored. You know, it would be cool if there were aliens at Area 51, wouldn't it? It would be cool if there were ghosts in this haunted house, wouldn't it? Yeah, it's interesting. The people who actually then believe it, though, that's a bit stupid. You know, as a sort of, this is fiction, cool, enjoy it, fun, make some creepypasta about it. But I think there's a much darker side to it when you have like parents who are anti-vax, and you have people who say, oh, you can cure cancer with alkaline water, and you have these in a similar sort of way, parents who say, look, you're 3 years old, you recite that Quran, you recite the Torah, and you learn all the verses. You can't. These things have damaging impacts on people, and anything that's anti-science and actively damages someone, I'm really opposed to. As a as a scientist myself, I find it just awful, abhorrent. Yeah, that's a whole different thing to I'm a bit stupid, therefore I believe the government did 9/11. Homeopathy is another big shitter like that. Yeah, these people come to hospital and, oh, well, we can take $100,000 off them if we dilute this thing enough and then say, oh, well, put it on you. I'm sure it'll cure you. It's made from what caused your problem. Fucking stupid, but the amount of people who believe this crap, disgusting, so exploitative. It should be outlawed.
They're going to the hospital and getting that sort of treatment. Like your NHS
Yeah.
allows that to happen.
Yes, it's not illegal. It very nearly became funded by the NHS. Outrageous.
That's absolutely ridiculous. I mean,
Yep.
I get it getting bigger here because when you don't have access to medication or any sort of medical services because you don't make the money for it, then yeah, you're going to look for any alternative that makes you feel better. But
So sick.
I can't believe that. That is mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Anyway.
Goodness. So, if any of y'all have any questions, we still have time for a couple more topics. If you want to leave that in the Floof Talk text chat right above this voice chat, you can. But in the meantime, we still have a couple more here. This one was suggested by Tamino. And Tamino wants to know how we feel about the prominency of smartphones in recent years and the pros and cons about that. And I know Simba's view. Simba does not own a cell phone.
No, never have. I feel it's well, completely unnecessary. There are Look, too many times I've been on a first date and gone to, eat with a guy or gone to cinema or whatever, and I'll be talking to them and they get out their fucking phone, and that is my sort of red line of, nah, you ain't getting a second date now, mister. So I think if I'm in the house or I have access to the internet, right, I've got messengers. If people want to talk to me, they can. If I'm out of the house, chances are I'm doing business or I'm meeting with people for social reasons. I don't need my phone for that sort of thing. And so I think I mean that's how I would justify a regular phone being unnecessary. As far as a cell phone, as far as a smartphone being unnecessary, I think that's just down to laziness. You get people who they don't know basic arithmetic. My little cousin, bless him, 15 years old now. He must be about 15, 16. And I asked him a few years back, well, just test the Noah's times table. Listen, 7 times 5. He gets out his phone. He gets out his phone and puts it in his phone. I'm like, what? You don't know that? How can you not know that? And you get people who they go around their city and they're looking at their phone for directions and they're walking and they nearly walk into the road because they're not paying attention. And you just think, how can you not know where you live? It's tragic, and I think people are becoming more and more and more passive observers of their own lives because they're told how to live because their smartphone tells them. I think in the same way as how we just discussed believing everything you read or you're told, I think a malicious app developer could code an app to say, oh yeah, you should you know eat an extra cheeseburger today, and people would. People would just do what the phone tells them because they're so conditioned to that. So no, I don't use this stuff. I don't think it's necessary. I think it's people are becoming more stupid and more lazy because they're reliant on this stuff. Yeah, that's my soapbox.
Well, hell, it's hard for me to follow up on that. I do agree fundamentally. There's nothing I can stand more. I work retail and having to see these people come in with their kids, and the whole time the kid is glued to their mom's phone, the
Yeah.
tablet, whatever. And then
Sad.
the moment they don't have that stimulation or they're not getting something that they saw and they wanted, they're
ADHD.
inconsolable. They found that the way that blue lights interact with our brain, the lights that come from cell phones, from desktop computers, that it operates on our brain. It creates dopamine in the same way that drugs do. and we are sitting our kids in front of what are essentially addiction screens. They're Skinner boxes, especially since the games that they play are designed to be as close to Skinner boxes as possible. I mean, i.e. old school RuneScape.
Yeah, right, RuneScape.
But it's disgusting to me. I think it's borderline child abuse, and yes, there's a lot of great to smartphones, but as far as what they've created in our society, it is absolutely something we would have been better off without.
You say child abuse, though, do you not feel that it's as abusive to adults? Not just from a sense of taking away their own active existence, but also thinking about the way that they market these things. So, oh, you must upgrade to the new product, spend another $700. It's only been 18 months, but like I'm sure you can afford it and you need this product. All of your friends have this product and it's an upgrade. And I think it's very these are high ticket items, and the way that they're marketed is really exploitative. It's almost like you feel I need this as much as I need food, and there are people who will go without food so they can afford these new devices. I think that's just as bad.
But that's not a fault of smartphones. That's a fault of all luxury item marketing. It's actually a great changed my view thread on Reddit today that specifically asked that. He was a copywriter, and his view was that all marketing is exploitative and a form of manipulation. And
I
yeah, I'm
mean,
inclined to agree, but
I mean, I think so, but I think it's also worth pointing out that some products are definitely valuable for people to have, and so it's not that absolutely, if I'm selling you a product, I'm going to manipulate you to want to buy my product, but that doesn't mean that my product's bad for you, and it doesn't mean that it's a bad choice for you to buy my product. It simply means that I'm persuading you to try to buy a product. And I would go so far as to say that it's not just marketing and sales, but every social interaction is like this. If I interact with you in a certain way, it's because I want a certain thing. It's often subconscious, but every person will get something from every social interaction. And so I guess you can say any social interaction is a form of sales and marketing. But yeah, very cynical view, but social interaction, marketing, sales, whatever, being entirely transactional is what I believe, subconsciously or otherwise. Not necessarily a bad thing. In some cases, certainly a bad thing. Smartphones being a good example, but not always. Thank God. It would be tragic otherwise. I hate phones though. Really hate phones. And look, if you ever go on a date with me, any of you here, any of you listening, you get out your phone, you are not coming back, I promise you. Never go back on that.
I mean, I just can't imagine it. I like my phone and all, but if someone's talking to me, I don't pull it out.
People just think it's normal though. You know, they'll be, you know, you go for a pizza with someone and they'll talk a little bit and then they'll be on their phone. Then they'll take a picture of their food and then they'll post
Okay,
it on
no,
Twitter and
that
Facebook.
is
It's like, what are
different.
you doing?
Anyone who would take a picture of their meal to put on social media, oh my goodness.
The amount of people who do this though. Like I'm okay
Especially if
with
you didn't
it.
make it. If you made
Right.
something
If it's
awesome.
homemade, that's a little different, right? Sure. If it's homemade and you're just in your kitchen by yourself, cool. But fucking hell, don't take a picture of your Pizza Hut. It's crummy. Yeah, don't do it.
Yes, Steve here says if they take a picture of their meal, they're not a viable mate.
No, nope. And if they think whoever they're DMing on Telegram or Discord or Skype is more interesting than you, that absolutely applies
Yes,
as well.
goodness gracious.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So we do still have time if anyone else has a topic they'd want to discuss. That one pink Serg says, how about let's talk about how dating is a scam?
Sure, I really agree with that.
Yeah, no. The dating is the process of two people who might want to get to know each other better, taking the time to do just that. I could definitely get into this to an extent, especially for heterosexual relationships. My mate and I talk about this a lot, and we think that heterosexual relationships, in real life especially, uh, just more likely to fail because of a set of preconceived notions as to how that relationship is supposed to operate from the get-go, you know? the man does XYZ, the woman does XYZ. There's none of those expectations in a homosexual relationship, so you kind
Oh,
of
come
have to
on. How
sit
many
down
times have you been asked, are you the woman or the man?
and that's when you say we're both men.
Yeah, but like, that's not.
Okay, first off,
even if people don't ask, that's what they think.
and no one would ever ask because my mate is a full foot taller than me. They just make the assumption.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, no.
Let's perhaps leave that for next
That's
time. That's a bit of a bigger one. Let's finish on
yeah.
something a bit lighter.
Well, the only other one we had planned was if we were president.
If we were president, we've got
There's
a
got to be
list
something a
of
little
more.
lighter.
We've got a list of more topics in this beat.
Let's
Let's see if
see
there's
what
one
we
of
got.
those.
Unless any of y'all have any suggestions for what you want to hear us talk about, Leafy wants to know about tattoos.
I think that's quite similar to vaping and modern trendy stuff. We could do that on Thursday.
Okay. Air typing.
We had and it's not entirely light, but we had a lot of people last time asking about Brexit. Could talk a little bit about Brexit.
I am not ready. That's a Thursday
All right,
discussion.
no worries.
Hey, we've already planned out like the entirety of Thursday's show.
Yeah.
Favorite
Versus cost of value. We could do it for your president. I mean, I haven't thought about it, but if you're prepared.
Oh
Favorite
my
food?
goodness, you don't know how prepared I am.
Favorite food, says Icy Brie. Could talk about that.
Yeah, that's. We'll leave the presents for another one. I want to leave on a light note, especially since we did not do much fluff talk tonight. So, I mean, we now know it's not Oreos for Simba.
No, it's not. I bet you there are at least half the people who know me here who know what my favorite food is. Do you know what my favorite food is, Nova?
It's got to be curry.
Of course, it's curry. Curry is the best food in the world, and
but
all
you
of
eat the
you
wrong
guys.
kind of curry.
What do you mean?
You eat Indian curry.
Why Bangladeshi curry? Well, you eat Thai curry?
Yes, Thai curry is the absolute best.
No. Proper Bangladeshi curry. Spicy food. British curry as well. Wonderful. I think God, I love curry. I tell you what, if the store wasn't closed, I would go and get a curry right now. 2 a.m. Absolutely gutted. They open at 6. I have had curry for breakfast. It's wonderful. I've had curry pizza before. That's
curry
also
pizza.
Wonderful. Yep, absolutely. I make my own sort of curry marinated chicken, put it on a margarita pizza, oven it. Gorgeous, let me tell you.
That actually sounds really good.
Yep, it is. I feel so bad for you guys in America who don't know what curry is. It's unbelievable how many of you guys don't know what curry is. You're like, is it just like spicy food? I mean, yeah, okay, it's spicy, but it's so good. It's so fucking good. I think second favorite food, pizza, but curry's the best. What about you?
I mean, it's difficult. I love a good New York strip, medium rare. Oh, now
What's a New York strip?
A steak.
Like? Oh, steak. Okay. Yeah, steak's good. Are you
Um,
one of these people who smothers the steak in sauce? You can't taste the steak.
oh no, unless that steak needs sauce, then I'm gonna eat the steak as is.
Okay.
Like, what's the point of getting a nice cut of steak and then slathering it in anything? Oh my god, our president eats his well done with ketchup. Made me want to
Really?
die.
That's
I don't care what the politics are behind you. If you, I don't know what I'm saying. My mate eats his steak the same way.
Oh, what really?
He not with ketchup, thank God, but he does eat his steak well done. And
I like it still alive and squirming on my plate. The rarer the better.
Every single time we
That's
make it to the last 5 minutes and you get degenerate.
How is that degenerate? Like, they call it steak bleu in French. It's like, you know, that's proper. Just because it's alive doesn't mean it's... I'm a lion. Shut up. Let me eat my bloody food. Judging me. I don't judge you when you can gas people. Damn skunk. What's your favorite dessert?
Skunk. Oh, goodness. Oh,
yeah, big smelly skunk.
No.
Tiramisu. Coffee flavor.
I love coffee, and I like really non-sugary desserts.
Okay. I'm like, I got a sweet tooth. The more sugar it's got, the better. I like all sorts of caramel flavored stuff, strawberry cheesecake, oh, peach cake, God, gorgeous. Oh, caramel shortbread. There's a Hungarian dessert called dobos torte, which is very good. It's caramel melted over the top and then layers of chocolate and cake. Oh, I'm hungry. God damn it. Oh, why did we
What's your
finish on
favorite
this?
dessert, Nova? I've got 7. Sorry, what was that?
Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Ah.
I'm a big fan of gelato.
What's oh, gelato? Don't get that much here. Have you ever had it with chocolate cake?
No.
Hot chocolate cake. Yum.
Oh, I'm a little skunk. I can only eat so many sweets. Do a lot of baking, though.
Oh, jealous.
I'll send some your way next
I
time.
was going to say you should take some pictures and annoy your mate. Post them on our Twitter. All right. That's about. Anything else to add, or are we?
I think we can go ahead and start wrapping up. Thanks for coming
Alright.
out. I hope you had a great time. I know I did. I really love our speaking events. If we didn't answer your question, we'll try to get to it on a future episode. So you do have ideas for future topics. Don't wait until next time. Go ahead and post them in the Floof Talk chat whenever it comes to mind. Our next Floof Talk is going to be Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern. We also have another podcast next week. That's going to be same time, same place this week, Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Our topic of discussion is going to be School Sucks, the failure of the public education system. And let me tell you, there are so many people who hit me up immediately after saying, oh, I want to talk about this so bad. So if you'd also like to speak on this topic but have not reacted to the announcement poll, please feel free to DM me, Nova the Based Skunk, to let me know. All of you that came out to support us tonight should claim your Fluff XP by using !attend Floof Talk in the Ranking Systems chat. Simba put that in the Floof Talk chat for you.
Talk channel, yep, and I'm going to put that again in the Twitch for those of you who are on Twitch, and the link to Discord is now also on our Twitch. Thank you everyone who's attended. Please do remember to drop us a follow on Twitter as well, on Twitch, sorry, if you'd be so kind. I put a link to that in our Discord as well.
You can follow our Twitter too, and our Facebook.
Follow our Twitter, yeah, follow everything.
YouTube.
Follow everything, yep.
What are we missing? What should we get? Let's get a Foursquare, a LinkedIn.
We have them.
Do we really?
So when Blaze and I were doing the rebranding, we registered over 100 accounts for each of our favored 2 brands. So yeah, we actually do have all of these weird sites you've never heard of. we even have an F list for Furry Valley, believe it or not.
Yes. So that means that I can ask to roleplay with the entirety of the FV server at once.
You could. Yep. I don't
Will
think
I get a
we have a
response?
Reddit. Yep, we have Reddit. Reddit/Furry Valley is a thing.